Hi, and welcome to Real Estate from the Trenches. I'm Dennis Norman, and today I'm going to talk about something that there's a lot of conversation about, both within the real estate community by real estate professionals, as well as outside of the real estate community by a lot of attorneys and consumer rights groups and things like that, and then also by the consumers themselves. So it's the National Association of REALTORS clear cooperation policy and things related to that. So I talk a lot about that on my channel, and also read a lot of articles about it on realestatefromthetrenches.com. You can check it out. And so to kind of bring up to speed on what's been happening lately, last month, about mid-March, attorney Michael Ketchmark, who is the attorney that was behind the massive Sitzer or Burnett suit against National Association of REALTORS that resulted in like a $1.8 billion judgment, and ended up with a settlement in the $400+ million range for the National Association of REALTORS. Michael Ketchmark has been pretty vocal since the settlement, and with regard to what's going on in the industry to either comply with the settlement or work around it. And so anyway, back in March, I wrote an article you see here that was about an interview that Ketchmark did with Inman News. And he made his stance pretty clear during that interview. And what he was referring to was NAR had a vote coming up within a week or so after this interview on what to do with the clear cooperation policy, which is, again, the thing that's been under fire. And he said, quote, "It's my expectation that after this meeting, when this comes to a NAR vote overall, that they'll do the right thing and remove that policy and let the free market continue to work," end quote. He added that if the rule remains, his firm will scrutinize the motivations of those involved and determine whether anti-competitor behavior is at play. He went on to say, quote, "We'll take the depositions of the people involved and figure out exactly why they did that and what was the motivation behind it, and then make a decision at that point on how to proceed," end quote. So I think he means business. Now, his real, I think, focus on this and criticism of clear cooperation, which happens to be one of my criticisms too, is that it really hamstrings how properties can be marketed. It dictates that that within one business day of any sort of marketing of a listing, it has to go in the MLS. So if an agent signs the listing with the seller and the seller's just not ready, to go in the MLS yet, their house isn't ready for showing, but they want the sign in the yard though, let's start, drumming up some interest. The agent has to make a decision. Once they put that sign in the yard, they got one business day to put in the MLS. Also, if the seller, the agent has to coach the seller, hey, don't tell anybody about this, because the seller putting something out on social media, for example, that, hey, my house is for sale and I just listed it with so-and-so, that would trigger this one-day requirement too. Now, going in the MLS is not bad. I mean, that's the way to market the property and get the widest exposure. But this policy is, really hamstringing agents and not letting them serve their clients properly. There may be situations where it will be a 3 or 4 week delay before they're ready for the market. Well, the other thing this has led to in the policy, the allowance of office exclusive listings. So this is the practice where an agent can list a property, not put it in the MLS where it's distributed to the other agents in the MLS or publicly, and then they are still prohibited from advertising it, but they can tell people in their office about it. So anyway, that's basically what's behind the policy and what's triggering things there. So shortly after Ketchmark's interview, then Compass Realty, who happens to have an internal network where they do market office exclusive properties among their own agents, came out and spoke about it as well. And Compass delivered a message to the MLSs, and basically it was that they should adopt flexible enforcement models. And they pointed to a couple of MLSs that already have some kind of flexible models like Bright and MRED, and that basically they wanted more flexible models that included like options for allowing coming soon listings to be marketed publicly without accruing days on the market, or disclosing price changes, things like this. But they wanted to retain office exclusive because it's something that they do. Then something else I wrote about, a study came out, or a survey that was done. It was a Harris poll done in conjunction with Zillow around the same time also in March, where talking about these private listing networks, like what Compass described and like what several companies have out there. These private listing networks are basically just an internal network where only the agents in that one particular firm know about it, and again, no public advertising generally. And so this survey talked about, my article talked about how a growing number of brokerages have been steering people toward these private listing networks, and that in January this Harris poll was done that Zillow paid for, and just to check the consumer awareness on, if they even know what the private listing networks are. And so the survey highlighted, what a lot of people would consider an alarming trend. Most sellers aren't given all the facts about their listing options. So it really appears that most sellers are in the dark about private listings. In fact, according to the poll, 68% of those polled and worked with a real estate agent said that their agent never explained the difference between the MLS and a private listing network. And then 63% of the sellers who sold within the past 5 years that were recommended to list had a recommendation to list it privately. So about 2/3 of the sellers that sold in the last 5 years said that their agent had recommended listing it privately, like in a private listing network. And that's up significantly from sellers that sold more than 5 years ago, where that percentage was just 18%. Also in this survey, the question was asked, does keeping a listing off the MLS and doing it privately, does that help sellers? Well, not usually. The survey showed that 43%, almost half the sellers that listed privately, ended up switching to the MLS, and only 35% stuck with the private listing approach. So why the change of heart? The reality is just, and I think the data supports this, homes listed in the MLS are going to attract more buyers, leading to stronger offers, higher sales prices. When there's more competition, there's going to be higher prices. And even when sellers, this survey also showed that even when sellers initially preferred a private listing network, 44% changed their minds after learning more facts about the MLS, and that jumped to 56% among older sellers. So what else here? The other things that the survey showed was that basically the number one thing that the people surveyed home sellers wanted from an agent was getting their home in front of the most buyers. That's the number one priority. Well, that would lend itself to being in the MLS, because like in our local MLS, which is Maris here in the St. Louis metro area, it's a regional MLS. We've got about 16,000 members, give or take. That's a lot of agents to expose it to. There's literally thousands of websites the property goes out to. I mean, I don't care how big the individual company is that has a private listing network, but if they're exposing it to their agents and their agents only, it's just a minor amount, a tiny amount compared to the MLS exposure. So, and the bottom line is private listings tend to benefit the agents more than sellers. It does give agents the opportunity to snag both ends of the deal. So after all of this, NAR did change the rules. Now, they didn't really listen to Catchmark's warning, and they didn't really do what I personally would have liked to seen them do, which is do away with office exclusive and also just basically give the freedom to the listing agents to serve their sellers properly and market the homes which in the best interest of their seller. But anyway, toward the end of last month, what they did was they made a change to it, and now the approach they took was to offer more options and to have multiple options for sellers now. And so what they added was something called, or that they're referring to as delayed marketing exempt listings. So that enables a listing agent to temporarily delay public marketing, which would be, they would temporarily keep it from going out in IDX feeds, which are the feeds from the MLS that go to brokers' websites, which would include like Zillow, for example. And then also it would block it from feeds that go to third parties like Realtor.com and all that. So it would keep in this delayed marketing status, which is what I'm going to call MLS exclusive. It's something that our MLS has discussed, and it's something I'm advocating for. So basically, while it's in this MLS exclusive status, the listing isn't kept secret from everyone except for agents in an office. Every agent in the MLS would know about it. It's just it wouldn't be put out publicly. So that would address concerns if there are sellers that have some privacy concerns and things like that. So basically, with NAR's rule change, though, they did leave the office exclusive part in there. And then they did clarify, which just makes it a little more muddy, that agents in an office that have an office exclusive listing can, on a one-on-one basis, tell other agents outside their firm about that listing. And that just opens up another whole can of worms. But we won't get into that. So and then just a couple of days ago, there was another survey released, this time from the realtor community, or it was a survey of realtors. And it just shows, on top of everything else that's been mounting, all the legal challenges and issues National Association of Realtors has. Another issue they have is the agents that are members of the realtors, which is a big number. It's 1.5 million agents or something like that nationwide. A big number of them are just really becoming more and more dissatisfied with the National Association of Realtors on a lot of fronts. And so basically, as you can see in the chart that there at the bottom of that article I did, there were 11% of the agents that said their attitude toward the National Association of Realtors was very favorable, and 14% said somewhat favorable. So about a fourth, were somewhat favorable or better. And but then you go down to the other end of it. Very unfavorable was twice the percentage. It was 22.6%. Double the percentage of very favorable, and the somewhat favorable was, again, double the other one. So you've got over half the agents that are have an unfavorable or worse opinion of NAR, and you've got about a fourth of them that have a somewhat favorable or better opinion. And then you had another fourth that had no opinion. So just it's continuing to mount. And if that wasn't enough, but wait, there's more. Just 2 days ago, it was announced that the Department of Justice, which the NAR has been in a long battle with, and the DOJ keeps coming up in all these lawsuits and things with their opinions on things, they have selected a man by the name of Roger Alford they hired him. He's a law professor from Notre Dame. He's got a lot of antitrust experience, and he's just been appointed the principal deputy assistant attorney general for the antitrust division. And antitrust is the part that all this stuff stems from, and so basically he's the new sheriff in town, so to speak. And that's not going to make it better for NAR with the things they're battling on the antitrust front, which includes, clear cooperation is kind of part of that, because Roger Alford has been his opinion is well known that he's against a lot of these things. In fact, he was an expert witness for Ketchmark, the attorney I mentioned a while ago, in that Sitzer lawsuit. He was an expert witness in that lawsuit, and was critical of the industry and particularly things like clear cooperation policy and how and commission transparency and things like that. So he is now, like I said, the new sheriff in town. So we'll see. It's been an exciting couple of weeks on this front. That's all the latest. Again, you can keep up on real estate from thetrenches.com or this YouTube channel. If you like it, give it a like, subscribe, and you'll hear more. Thank you, and have a great day. God bless you.